What's up, y'all? Just want to paint the picture a little bit more clearly as far as the divine feminine and the divine masculine and what these energies are and how they pertain to us. I know we talk about this quite often, but I want to make sure that we get the right, correct, like visuals to have a full understanding, a deep understanding, because I feel like once you understand, once it clicks for you and you're like, that's how it works, then you can on your own start to piece everything together. So we're gonna get to it again. I know I've talked about these things, but let's hammer it in. So the divine feminine and the divine masculine, right? These are two energies that we're talking about that we can't assign human traits to, right? Us as humans, we're gonna be like, oh, divine feminine, all the girls are gonna be like, yay, and divine masculine, all the guys are like, yeah. You know what I mean? It's not about that, right? Obviously, we are expressions of those things, but one or the other, we are both, right? Just like you are both from your mom and your dad, right? You come from two humans. It takes two, right? A male and a female, divine masculine and feminine. Like there's no other way around it, right? You need those two energies to create life. So what I'm saying is the divine masculine and feminine, yes, you are both. I'm just trying to show you that you are a superposition already of being two people, but neither at the same time. Anyways, that is how this energy comes together, right? And all these things are created, right? All this variety. So let's get back to the basics, right? So if we're looking at planets and stars and heavenly bodies, right? We're talking about these huge, massive, monolithic spheres floating in this space, right? These lights and energy balls and stuff like that, right? Floating in space, right? So we got to get out of human terms, trying to anthropomorphize everything, right? And trying to make it something where it's related to us, and it's not that way. We are little organisms being a part of a huger thing. So let's think back on the huger terms. This is what we're talking about right now. So these two energies, masculine and feminine. Imagine an energy, or visualize an energy, which would be the feminine, right? That is the space. You don't have to visualize it. Just look up at night, right? You see this whole the whole blackness that is space. That is the divine feminine, right? That is the divine feminine. We are inside it. That is the body of the divine feminine. We call it a void, right? We say it's these things, but people did not know air was there until we figured out, oh, this is air, right? Same thing with water. There's a property here that you're moving through something. You are within what is called a field, right? And that field is the divine feminine. That is what we would call also a memory bank, right? Like a memory card, right? Space, right? Right? Look up, this is space, right? Look at a memory card. What do you call a memory card that you just buy that doesn't have anything on it, right? It's free space. It's empty space. It has space, right? But there's not that there's no purpose to it. It is that the purpose for it is for it to contain something, right? So that is where the divine masculine comes in, right? It is the light. It is the information. It is the data. It is the coding that integrates with that space in order to create this existence or create this awareness, right? And by existence, key word, two things, right? In order to exist, you need to know that there's something that doesn't, right? In order for there to be day, you have to know that there's night, right? There has to be night, right? In order for you to know that you're alive, you also have to understand that there's death. Otherwise, you wouldn't be existing, you would be persisting, right? It wouldn't be something where you are aware, oh, wow, yes, I'm alive, you know? But that is the magic of these two energies coming together as one and being opposites, is because you create what is called consciousness or existence, or the two experiencing itself, right? Or one experiencing itself within that understanding that there's two, right? Just like us as a man and a woman, right? Here, us a human. If they were all men, we wouldn't even understand what it would be to be a man, right? We would just think that, okay, we're just here, right? Same thing with women. If it was all women, you wouldn't understand what it is to be a woman because there would not be a counterpart to. So it is ingrained in us from the beginning of everything that there is a counterpart that we have, right? Yes, at the end of the whole thing, it is all just one. But the only step away from that is that which I'm talking about, right? These counterparts, because that's the first step. Of course, we get into numbers, we get into multiples, we get into personalities. There's a whole bunch of stuff, but we're talking back to the simplest of terms of how the oneness becomes two, and these two, how they interact with everything and how they come together in all sorts of shapes and forms to create what is here, right? The act of division over and over and over is what creates this illusion of multiplication. So let's go a little bit deeper, right? I hope y'all are understanding this. So like I mentioned before, the divine feminine is memory, right? Or space, or yes, the field, right? And the divine masculine would be like the protons, right? The things that you see, the mask, the actual thing that you see, right? The thing in front of the shadow, right? If you were to put a mask onto space, and you were to understand, what would space look like if it had a personality? Boom, there we go, divine masculine, right? That is the part that you actually experience. So these two energies, one is at rest, right? Sort of, right? Which is the space, right? It's because it's supposed to be. A blank canvas is supposed to be blank because it is supposed to have space on it, right? You wouldn't want to buy a memory card that is already have stuff on it, that there'd be no purpose to it. The purpose of it is for it to create space for something to exist upon, you know what I mean? So it is the stage, right? So it also being the stage, there's kind of an up and a down to it a little bit, right? And I wouldn't even call it down, it's just perspective. But the upside to it is that it can't be destroyed, right? The space can't be destroyed, right? We can destroy planets and stuff like that, but we can't destroy space itself, right? All this is happening within a field, right? You can't, you can manipulate it and stuff like that, but it is something that goes beyond life and death, right? Because it is not attached to death as life is, right? Because life needs energy to keep going, right? It needs to consume, right? It needs some sort of, it has to interact with the surroundings in order for it to continue. Space, not so much. Space is the container, right? Or what you would call death, or what you would call the vacuum, or whatever, right? So that is what the divine feminine represents, though, as well, is this force that is non-destructive, that permeates everywhere, that connects everything. That is the words, not the words, it is the space between the words. When people say, oh, you're reading between the lines, or you can't read between the lines, it's because you're not tapped into your divine feminine energy. Divine feminine energy is what allows you to read between the lines. It's that intuition, it's that feeling of everything. The space in between connects all of these words to make sentences, to make paragraphs, to make, to ideas to be transferred to one another. The masculine are the singular words, each unique in its own expression, but stronger together, right? You need multiple words in order to get a point across. You can't just use one word for the rest of your life and expect change to happen. So the masculine energy is this ability to have all of these different forms and all of these different meanings and all of these different things and all of these, the act of being in that space and being able to utilize that space to create a new potential, to create a new life, to create a new expression, right? And there's an infinite amount of expressions, and there's an infinite amount of space. And that's what allows these things to create so much variety of multiverses and solar systems and planets and nationalities and ecosystems and all sorts of things, right? So, but there's this aspect of two things, right? Like I mentioned before, the divine feminine not being destructive and not dying. The divine masculine, that is what it does, right? It is, but it's a power, and it's also like a pro and a con in a sense, right? Because the fact that it dies is what allows it to have that competition or to reach those heights of greatness, right? That time restraint or that liability or that kind of liability in a sense. But the the aspect of that death and rebirth also is a part of not dying, right? But it is this on and it's this up and down and up and down. It's this wave, right? The masculine energy is this energy, the divine masculine is this energy that kind of moves like a wave in a sense, to where it's like, imagine the top of the wave being in life and the bottom of the wave being in death. It is kind of how it keeps its motion going, right? The history, so to speak. The divine feminine is more of just the forever, you know what I mean? The divine masculine is more of like the moment, you know? The moment comes and goes this way. You're hungry and you're this and you're that. The moment's always changing. And the divine feminine, she always changes too, right? She has all the things that are able to change within her. Shows her capacity to be able to be everything, right? So here's another point that I'm going to make that kind of ties this together. Is the divine feminine, what we call unconditional love, is her like superpower, right? And I'm saying her, I'm making it a male female thing, but y'all get it, y'all see what's up. So it is her, it's like superpower, unconditional love, right? And what does that mean? It means a lot of things on a lot of different levels, but what it means with space is, like I mentioned before with the memory card, right? Analogy. Unconditional love is like free space, right? You can download anything onto that memory card, right? You can store anything onto that memory card. It doesn't matter what it is, right? It can be a text file, exe file. It could be some like a hacker code or some naughty stuff or whatever, right? Or it could be like movies or whatever. Like you literally can put anything on that memory card, right? It's not limited to it. You can just put it on there. So essentially, that is the unconditional aspect of the divine feminine, right? This all infinite space, right? You have all these multiverses and universes and dimensions and all of these things that all exist within her, because she has that potential for all of that to exist because of unconditional love. It's not like, oh, okay, yeah, I can only store this many files or these kind of files, not those kind of files. It's like, no, it's unconditional. And what that also means too, besides just being able to house all of the light within her in information, it is the ability to create the possibilities for a variety to exist. Because just like Thomas Edison with the light bulb, he did multiple experiments to try to figure out what was going to be the right filament for his light bulb, which ended up being tungsten, right? So it's something where that is an aspect of unconditional love, right? The creating the field to have mistakes over and over and over and over and over and over and over, an infinite amount of, almost a damn near infinite amount of mistakes, just for that one possibility or that one connection to work, right? There's always a counterpart. There's always something that can work if you look deep enough, right? And that unconditional love aspect of it is really the miracle that drives this whole thing, which is life, which is spark, which is key, which is that when these two energies connect, when these two opposites have one thing that is that unconditional love thing that makes it actually work, right? When you find, oh, eureka, I found it. This is what actually works, But you don't start off at eureka. You don't start off with the tungsten filament. You start off having a bunch of miscalculations and trying to figure this out and trying to navigate through the unknown to find an answer, right? To find something that's going to work. Key word, something that's going to work. And then when you finally come across it, boom, now you can apply it. So that unconditional love is what permeates throughout the universe, to where there's so many possibilities out there just for that one to work. And then now when you get that one, now that one can now create multiple, you know what I mean? So that aspect of her is, the unconditional love is so powerful, so powerful, right? It is what allows any possibility to happen, but any solution to come out of any possibility, more so, you know what I mean? For it to work. So that's how you get two things that are opposites to actually come together and make something new. You know, just like man and woman, right? Just like all of these energies, these polarities, negative and positive, and all these things. I can go so much deeper into this stuff. I'm trying to figure out where's a good point for me to like round this off. But let's see. Space. Okay, this is where I'll end it right here. So with this unconditional love, right, that we have, just like us in the third dimension, right? This is our field, right? Like I mentioned, the air that you can feel just by doing this, right? This field that we exist in, right? We have to breathe, right? It is every moment we are interacting with this field. It is her, right? It is like the actual, like, being in the womb, being in the water, right? It's a real-time, ongoing transaction between you and this divine feminine energy, right? And she's keeping all of us alive, right? And that's the way it's designed. So what I'm saying is, in every dimension, there is a field that exists that allows you to exist within, right? Every dimension, right? And that is the divine feminine. The divine feminine is that space that allows you to experience within, right? So I'm gonna cover a few other points, because the divine feminine covers so many things. I could literally make a whole lifetime talking about this stuff, really. So the divine feminine is a space that allows you to exist, right, within something, right, or to have an experience within something. So it happens on every dimension, right? And what I mentioned before, the fourth dimension is the mind. It is not time. The fourth dimension is the mind, right? When you have thoughts and you visualize thoughts, or you have a dream, right? Where is the light coming from that you see in that dream, right? Right now, you can see this is daytime, right? The light's obviously coming from the sun, and that's it, right? Like that's reality. Like, but when you're in a dream, or when you're having like a daydream or whatever, some sort of visual, your mind is rendering what's going on, right? Your mind is creating the sunlight for that space, right? Your mind is creating the faces, the interactions and stuff like that, right? But what is the field that interaction is upon? What are the pixels that your dream is rendered upon, right? What is, I know it's happening within your brain, but the backdrop, what is the canvas that your dreams are existing upon, right? We know what the canvas of this is, right? It's actual like materials and things like that. But in your mind, who's to say what's what? Who's to say where the ground should be and where a a fall should be? You know what I mean? It's all in your mind. It is all another field that you are able to perceive. But I'm not going to go into the fourth dimension too much. But what I'm saying is the divine feminine exists on every dimension, even on the highest dimensions with planets, right? A planet like Earth, right? It is so huge. Where could you even fit an Earth? Anywhere. If you had to put an Earth somewhere, right? Obviously, you can't have an Earth on this planet, duh, right? Doesn't make sense, right? Does not compute. But the only place you can fit an Earth is in space. Space, right? The only place you can fit a freaking Jupiter is in space, right? The only place you can fit the sun is in space, right? There's already a field that's a container for these celestial bodies that exist on a higher dimension. These planets are a higher dimensional version of ourselves. I know that might be a little out there for y'all, but you know, I'm talking a few dimensions up for some of y'all. Some of y'all get this. But these, even at the highest dimensions, there is always going to be a container for which that is built for you to exist upon, right? All the planets and everything are in perfect alignment and orbit and are already doing their thing, whether we're here or not. And there is already a field here that governs that facilitates that is perfect and ideal for these things to exist upon. So we have a divine feminine energy that persists well beyond numbers, well beyond just as humans talking about, you know, sexual aspects of it. These are parts of the universe that make the universe work. It is literally the logic of the universe, of why everything does work. The logic is unconditional love, unconditional logic. Just type it in and it's gonna work eventually. Eventually, you know what I mean? Type beat, not necessarily everything, but the possibility is there because it is an unconditional condition. You know what I mean? So we'll get more into the other masculine traits and all that stuff, but right now I'm just trying to paint the picture so y'all have an understanding. And I promise you, test this logic on multiple levels. Test it. I promise you, test it how the field interacts with the object, how the atom in the Eve, and the Eve is the ether, the Eve is the field. That is what we're talking about here. But yeah, all right, I'll see y'all around. Take care, peace.